This
everyone.
conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the September 2020 edition of the St. Louis Java Users Group. Attendance is free. We have no formal membership list. Our normal meeting date is the second Thursday of every month except December, when there is no meeting. But when we do meet, we have food and social at 6, and meeting starts at 6:30 p.m., but we just haven't figured out a way to transmit food over the internet, so we simply just start the meeting at 6:30. When we do meet in person, it will be at the Object Computing Incorporated training room at 12,140 Woodcrest Executive Drive, Suite 310 in St. Louis. But of course, due to the pandemic, we're meeting online to keep everybody safe. I'd like to introduce everybody to the other members of the steering committee. From left to right, we have Ted Doyle, Todd Zimmerman, Bruce Alspaugh, that's me, Weiqi Gao, and Kathy Zwang. You can reach all of us on the steering committee by sending an email to the email address that is shown on your screen. That's javasigsc@ociweb.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors, because without the support of our sponsors, the St. Louis Java Users Group would not be possible. Object Computing Incorporated was the original sponsor for the JUG, and they continue to support us by doing the hosting for the website, and they also provide the room when we meet in person. I'd like to announce that we have a brand new JUG sponsor, JFrog. And JFrog has been very kind to sponsor our Meetup group subscription fees. It's free for you to sign up on Meetup, but it does cost us as a group to be able to create the site for you to sign into. And JFrog has agreed to cover the cost for another year. And they have also sponsored a Zoom account for the JUG in case we need to do that, in case the presenter doesn't have an online meeting platform that they can use. And they'll be coming on here shortly, I believe, with some raffle prizes or a special giveaway. I'm not sure all the details, but we'll get those in just a moment here shortly. Signature Consultants sponsors food, as does Adaptive Solutions Group. They are both headhunters, so if you're looking for a position, you can talk to either one of those, and they typically have lots of Java-related job openings. So give them a call, or just look them up on the web and let them know you found out about us at the St. Louis Java Users Group. At the end of the meeting, we'll be raffling a couple of JetBrains licenses, as we usually do. And Elastic has sponsored some gift cards. But we only give those away if we're meeting in person. Intertech also sponsors some giveaways. The famous Screaming Flying Monkeys, but we haven't figured out a way to transmit a monkey over the internet. So those will have to wait until we're meeting back in person again. Manning and Pearson also sponsor books, and we'll be giving away a couple of Manning ebooks at the end of the session. So if you would like to get into the raffle for the JetBrains licenses, there will be 2 of them, and I believe we can also give away 2 Manning ebooks. The thing to do is to go into your chat option and send your name and email address to one of our other steering committee members. That's Ted Doyle. You might want to wave so people can see who that is. Just send him a private chat message with your name and email, and that will get you into the raffle, and you can do that at any time during the presentation here before the end. As far as upcoming presentations, on October 8th, we have This Ain't Your Parents' Java. Venkat is coming back, and he's always a good presenter. And on November 12th, we have Modern Java Clients with Java FX, the Definitive Guide by Stephen Chin of JFrog. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now in December, we don't have a meeting due to the holidays. There's just too many things going on for us to organize a meeting, but hopefully we'll be back again in January with some more meetings. If you're interested in giving a presentation, and the schedule is open starting in January right now, you can always watch Meetup to see what our current presentation schedule is. But if you'd like to give a presentation or sponsor the Jug, you can again send an email to that same email address that I mentioned earlier. That's javasigsc@ociweb.com. As far as announcements go, jconf.dev is coming up on September 30th, so you might want to take a look at that URL there. It's just jconf.dev, and there'll be lots of Java presentations there on September 30th, and raffles and all kinds of prizes will be given away. It looks like it'll be a really nice conference. So normally at this time I would hand things over to our presenter for tonight, but I would like to give our brand new sponsor an opportunity to take a couple of minutes and tell us what he has to say, and then we'll transfer things over to our presenter for this evening. So Ari, do you want to take over?
Absolutely, and I'm not sure. I do have one slide I'd like to share if I could, Bruce. If you could,
Okay.
do you think you able to transfer that over to me real quick?
I clicked my stop sharing. What do I need
Uh-huh.
to do
Oh,
to
looks like
transfer that over?
I think I am. It says I am the new presenter, but no, I'm
Okay.
not. Let's see.
Okay. Oh, there. I see a screen.
You do. Wow,
I
that's
do
actually not
see
the
a
screen.
screen.
That's not what I wanted to show. How do you like that? Let's see.
Oh, the magic of technology, right?
Yes. Let me see here. Well, this is it's important to learn this platform. I think it's one of the ones I don't see it as often, but definitely has. Now, how do you stop sharing this? There it is. Okay, options. Share something else. Let's do that. And I am going to share. I really feel I feel the pressure now. Let's see here. Awesome. Okay. So I think you should all be looking at the right screen right now. Can everyone see a Amazon Echo Dot?
There, yes. I
Yeah.
see
Okay.
it.
Awesome. Great. Well, let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Ari Waller, and I work on the JFrog developer relations team with a focus in meetups. And as Bruce was saying, it's just a real honor and a privilege to be able to be part of your community and to be able to support the St. Louis Jug. I've heard some wonderful things, and you've got some great speakers, and just really, really, really love the community here. So thank you again for allowing us to be part of this. For those of you who have not heard of JFrog, JFrog, we are a software company based in the Silicon Valley. We're best known for our DevOps software. And if you haven't heard of JFrog, you may have heard of Artifactory, which is used widely throughout the globe. And it's the world's first universal binary repository, originally written in Java. We have been in business since 2008, and today we have almost 6,000 customers, and more than 3 million software engineers use our tools on a daily basis. So we're just really excited to be here today. One of the things that's really makes JFrog a very unique and awesome company is one of our core values is community happiness. And I have the privilege of waking up every morning and making that a goal of mine. So in the spirit of such, we wanted to offer tonight a Echo Dot. Now there's a QR code on the screen, which you can just take out your camera and shoot the QR code with it. And you'll be able to definitely take advantage of that raffle. So please do. And I will also put a bit.ly link if you don't see it down there in the chat when I'm finished, so you can enter the raffle there. Now the raffle will not be winner will not be announced tonight, but you will be selected within the next 24 to 48 hours, and then we'll share on the meetup page. Of course, we'll contact that person by winner, but then we'll be able to share publicly who that is. And each month, we're going to try to come up with a really, really great prize for the meetup. So again, Bruce and team, thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this. And with that being said, I will turn this back over to you if I can figure out how, which I'm going to do in just a moment. But thank you. Thanks for having us. Let's see.
Okay, Asha, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Let me know when you can see my screen.
That looks good.
Okay, great. Let me just get the presentation. So you can play this. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation. It was really something that we had done for CMG. This was in Las Vegas in February, and this is something that we presented as a white paper. So this really talks about marrying artificial intelligence with the automation and Jenkins pipeline to establish a performance environment, or performance of operating environment where you actually can see real-time results using AI from one end and seeing the operational results on the other end through a chatbot. So let me see. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Asha Somyajula, lead in performance engineering at MasterCard. I've been a couple of years, and I've been in St. Louis for almost 20 years now, and I do enjoy living and being in St. Louis. I worked in a few companies, FRB, Hewlett Packard, Mercy, and MasterCard is my destination right now. In terms of agenda, we will look at the problem statements, we will look at the solution drivers, we'll talk about the solution and its objectives. I'll go over the pipeline overview as we had it defined in design, the pipeline configuration and its final definition. I have a demo of the Captain implementation that we had. Hopefully that should suffice, and I'll go over the results, and then we'll talk about next steps and do Q&A after that. So problem statement, what we were trying to do was to build for performance scalability and availability right from the beginning. So the idea was to help performance engineers increase their velocity, be able to automate everything so that you enable the product and the development engineers to define SLAs and SLIs before a Jenkins build is kicked off, and be able to gather stats from Dynatrace tools, APM tools like Dynatrace, and be able to present that back as a build success or failure mechanism as a quality gate. So the idea was to scale for continuous delivery. It was to kind of make sure that you have the ability to scale when you want to implement the solution across across different environments or even across different pipelines themselves. Solution drivers from the Gartner 2020, one of the key trends for the AI automation was mainly hyper automation, being able to democratize a solution, being able to provide a multi-experience, in terms of the solution drivers, the human augmentation of the solution, and be able to provide some kind of a transparency and traceability for whatever you're trying to achieve and whatever your objectives are. The idea was to provide performance as a service. It was a prepackaged smart framework capable of automating everything that happens in a performance engineering lifecycle. It allows performance engineers to provide their inputs, allowing continuous performance feedback being provided back to the application in terms of its metrics, in terms of metrics derived from APM tools, and be able to define remediation goals. First defining the SLAs, then the quality gates, then capturing the metrics, thresholds, and finally applying remediation rules. So the idea was to provide an AI-driven, fully automated pipeline and be able to provide quality gate implementations in it as well. So the first steps was the framework can actually execute a set of tests. It can analyze and it can tune and retest cycles. It can execute a series of scalable test cycles to find a breaking point of a system. It can self-heal itself by running on rules and configurations. It can be used by developers and to validate and build for performance standards. And it can be triggered by a click of a button on your mobile phone. Pipeline components, the overall overview of the pipeline really was a sample Spring Boot Pet Clinic application. We incorporated that in a release Jenkins pipeline to run Stormrunner performance tests, to run bigger web page quality gates, be able to poll for Dynatrace KPIs, and to use Captain as an alternative to quality gates defined outside of shell scripts. And finally, provide a mechanism of auto remediation. We currently have that as shell scripts, but we were looking to kind of move away from that and be able to package it as a complete solution that wasn't based off hand-coded shell scripts. The features really, it's a chatbot invocation. It has automated performance test cycles, quality gates again, deterministic and automated remediation, and the recursive breakpoint test. The architecture. So here we have the trigger web hook. It invokes Lambda function, and it invokes the Jenkins pipeline, which invokes the container and deploys the Pet Clinic application, and also runs the Stormrunner tests, as well as polls metrics from Dynatrace to be able to match the thresholds defined in an SLI or an SLO file. This was based in a cloud agnostic, the solution was based off a cloud agnostic solution. So here we're talking about Amazon with EC2, but we implemented the same in Azure. We used Lex and botnet and even the Azure Lewis chatbot. So the idea was to use the benefits of the chatbot and be able to provide a human augmented approach to finally building the pipeline and be able to report results back in an AI driven fashion. Rigor was used for website performance and providing build success or failure metrics based on web metrics, web developer tool metrics, first page load, first byte return from the network, and various other metrics that are currently there as part of web calls, web HTTP calls. First page to download, first page to bytes, and stuff like that. Captain was used for event-based control plane. It was a quality gate as basically as a code as a service approach, where we define metrics with SLIs and SLOs and be able to present that, run a build, be able to validate against those SLIs and SLOs, and be able to present build success or failure JSON output, validating every threshold that you define in Dynatrace as a valid metric element. The pipeline design, just like any other pipeline, we have Git, we have the application being pulled from Git, we have the build steps like any other regular web application. We have the rigor web page quality thresholds being invoked and defects being recognized, and identification by the performance engineer by who says that 80% and above or 90% and above, if they don't match scores, if they don't match the performance scores, build will be marked as a failure. And then launching the load test, the ability to have, let me screen out here, but defining quality gates, and then having the performance engineer input his then be able to pull metric Dynatrace and reapply automation or automated remediation to be able to, so for example, if the heap was above 90% or the GC overhead was greater than 5%, then you increase the max heap, for example, just as an example. So the idea was to present a solution which was automated from point A to point B. And some of these pieces were completed and were tested. The pieces that we didn't have were work in progress, like, for example, the final results of the test being reported back to the front end. After code deployment was completed and after all the performance gates were completed, quality gates were tested for, and then finally when the build was complete, we didn't complete that little piece to kind of integrate with the chatbot, but it's quite possible to do that with a queue in AWS, and we did prototype it, but we didn't kind of integrate it with the pipeline as yet. This was implemented in a cloud agnostic way, as mentioned before. You can use any chatbot from Jenkins. You can use the Azure, you can use BotKit. You can use any load runner or load generator. I use NeoLoad, for example. You can validate your build, and with any APM tools available. And finally, the results can be seen either in Jenkins or they can be pushed out as a notification to the chatbot. In terms of configurations, the Jenkins pipeline definition was really the first step was to record the deployment event. And the second was to record and push the events. This was driven through Dynatrace. There's a plugin from Dynatrace that allows you to record events and the begin and end of a particular event. So in this case, we publish the metrics. So we start a recording session, then we publish the metrics, and then we execute the Storm Runner job. And we define the spec file that has the performance signature, which looks somewhat like this, where you define the metric that you care about, the upper warning, the upper severe warning. You define, the thresholds that you want to define, and the available percentage, for example, CPU percentage, with the identifier, the microservice that you're trying to target, and the metric to collect while the test from Storm Runner has executed. So in terms of the configuration on the Storm Runner side, it was adding the tenant, the project ID, and the test ID. Execution of the app to start the app before the test runs, and then after the and restart the app after the auto remediation steps have been invoked. And then finally, the test website performance rigor plugin, which really allows you to define stats, as in the defect ratio, and you capture web response stats, and you say that this is my threshold, this is my performance and defect count that I want to compare my build against, and be able to present a build failure or a success. Dynatrace configuration, we had the active gate monitoring the processes, the Spring Boot app and the Tomcat instance was being monitored through this agent. We had to set up the RUM, the real-time user monitoring configuration, and we had to provide a REST API token for the Jenkins plugin to invoke the and to capture the metrics. The auto remediation we had, so what we're looking for is we're making REST calls to Dynatrace to pull metrics. We capture data points. We specify what data points we want to, or what fields we want. So here we have the get available memory. We're looking for the memory percentile. Then we look at the GC suspension time, and then we look at the CPU utilization, and then we say that based on the last test result, these are the metrics that we capture, and based on, for example, based on a given test run, we provide Java options that are custom to that build, and we also provide the ability to increase memory, for example, to define the max connection threads if you have to, if it's required, and then we restart the jar after the steps have been completed. Captain, it has a concept of, it has a Kubernetes cluster that it works against. It has API endpoints, and it has a bridge service that does something quite similar to what was done in the previous slides, where you define your SLAs, your thresholds, but they define it as service level indicators and service level objectives. So here, you're basically making calls to the Kubernetes cluster that has these deployed as services, and you're basically giving it the Dynatrace identifier for it to pull metrics in Dynatrace and be able to certify that a given metric or a threshold has crossed, and it responds back with an evaluation after it's done. And it gives a JSON output of the evaluation score, the metrics that have failed, have passed, and for example, the response time P95, for example, if that has passed a certain threshold, it comes back with a failure or a success if that threshold has been passed. And the final results are presented in JSON format, but the bridge service provides a more UI-friendly interface. So here you define your project in Bitbucket or Git, but you call the service via the CLI. You provide the SLO file where you care about all the metrics that you want to capture from Dynatrace. You define the objectives. So, for example, the response time, you don't want it to increase you want it to be less than 10%. The pass criteria being 10% or plus 10%, and then less than 600 seconds. And it throws, and it finally presents the results as a JSON and an evaluation score, and then finally presents that back on the bridge. For the demo, I do have here. Yeah, the mouse is not showing up. No. No. How do I cancel? Looks like I messed up here. Okay, that takes it off. I am not able to share get my mouse where I can show you the demo, but I guess we can move on. the configuration, the results are shared in the one second. God, this isn't okay. Yeah, can you see my screen again? Yeah. The results are quite similar to the video that I wanted to share, but we'll just go over that. So here we have the chatbot design. What it's doing is that it's querying for it. It allows you to start a Jenkins build. You can get you can query for a given test ID in StormRunner and be able to get results, polling for the status. You can poll for the duration, throughput, average hits, whatever metric you want, to be able to identify what the status of that test is. Then you can even run a test. You can get the risk, the risk that we defined according to certain rules, where we say that if the success to failure ratio is about 80% or 90%, then your test is a success. So things like rules like that can be coded in with AWS and even Azure, and you can actually get feedback on how the test is performing while the build is in progress. The KPIs, this is through a Dynatrace. This is through the Dynatrace plugin. You can get for every build, you get the CPU, whichever metric that you have configured. You can get the CPU overall usage, the garbage collection, whatever your criteria is to define whether a pipeline should be built successfully or not, is something that you capture and you define in the JSON file that I initially showed. The test execution logs, essentially here, what we're looking for is, for example, here, the suspension time, we're looking for a certain threshold that was met. And then you increase the heap size, after you see an overhead, GC overhead, and then you kind of, you restart the jar with an increased, 1 gig of memory or however many gigs you want, as you see fit. And it really basically restarts the app. And then it runs the test again, and you can actually evaluate the results again. And then the build score and the performance score comes into play again. So until you reach that 80% or 90% threshold that you put for yourself, as a performance engineer, in terms of your input provided initially when the test is supposed to run, that auto remediation is in place until you achieve your goal, or you achieve the SLO that you have defined. And then if the rigor quality gates are not met, that is that, for example, here we found 2 or more defects, that is also captured, and the build is appropriately failed. The captain execution logs, you would just see the build score, like here. I don't know if you can see my screen, but we've tried to highlight it. So the result was a warning. The score was 83%. You have your metrics captured, throughput, your error rate, your target value is specified, violated is true or false, and then your response time, for example, P50, whatever metric that you care about, and then the final score, 83%, is what is reported back to Jenkins. So you can say that if your score is higher until 90%, you keep failing the build. And then it keeps reiterating itself, and it keeps rerunning the test until it gets its score up. The breakpoint test, here again, we're automating it. We are looking to we keep running the test until a certain threshold of throughput is met. As the load increases, the throughput also will increase, and then eventually, when it reaches a plateau, whereas you keep adding load and the throughput does not increase anymore, that's where your breaking point is achieved, and that is reported back to the system. This is just a visual representation of what we are trying to do. We do a recursive load until we hit the breakpoint. The breakpoint execution logs, same thing. We look at the stats. We look at the current and the previous TPS, and then we compare the previous to the latest TPS numbers, and then we check for SLA breakers overall. The quality gauge report from Brigger, we have the web response stats reported, the number of defects being reported, the aggregate savings, the first content paint, first paint, DOM interactive, first DOM interactive, and window do load kind of metrics, web page metrics essentially, and those are reported with a certain number. And the performance score is calculated based on the response times, and the best performance and the best practices score is also presented. The plugin, they also have a plugin for Jenkins that allows you to kind of define your thresholds there. What's next? We were looking to make the pipeline fully configurable. So now, right now there are a few manual steps where you're looking for the input from the PE engineers or any developers, DevOps developers, I guess, who would define the quality gate definitions, who would define the acceptable thresholds, and also define the rules. So so what we were looking for is to present a complete package, and automating the scripting to provide, a complete package that you can take and apply to any application or any deployable artifact. So the rules engine was something that we were looking to build, and that is something that we haven't got around to yet. But and that is something that we were looking for as a next in terms of a roadmap. And the idea to have a pipeline integration integrated with some other quality performance tools that allow us to kind of get more metrics and more confidence on the delivery of the pipeline. And then also provide more, instead of looking at Jenkins logs, snippets of that being put forth in the chatbot. What we were looking for is to kind of present that visually when needed. So questions. I don't know how to, yeah. Then I'll just pause for any questions, I guess. All right. Bruce, I think this was all that I had. I had some references on the, that talks about the trends for 2020, the talk, and there's documentation on the left chatbot, the Azure bot service, Captain Jenkins, Rigger Jenkins, and Stormrunner plugin information.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. And if there's no questions, then I guess what we do at this point is some sort of virtual applause. We have to figure out how to do that over the internet here. So thank you for presenting tonight. So at this point, I guess we're ready to hand things over to Ted. Did you get any entrants here for the raffle? You can go ahead and stop the recording.
Will do.